The Birchbark House by Louise Erdrich, read by Mrs. Mandrelle, Part 4. There was no warning. One moment Omakeus was wiggling a leafy stick, making it move on the ground so the cubs would jump on it, biting fiercely. The next moment she found herself flipped over on her back and pinned underneath a huge, powerful, heavy thing that sent down a horrible stink. It was the sow bear, the mother, breathing on her a stale breath of decayed old deer hides and skunk cabbages and dead mushrooms. Oh, wow! The surprising thing was, Omakeus realized later, that although she had no memory of doing so, she had the scissors out of their case and open, the sharp ends pointing at the bear's heart. But she didn't use them as a knife. She knew for certain that she should not move. If the bear began to bite and claw, she would have to plunge the tip of the scissors straight in between the bear's strong ribs, use all of her strength, sink the blade all the way into the rounded hilt, and then jump clear, if she could, while the bear went through its death agony. If she couldn't get clear, Omakeus knew she would have to roll up in a ball and endure the bear's fury. She would probably be clawed from head to foot, bitten to pieces, and scattered all over the ground. Until the mother bear made the first move, Omakeus knew she should stay still, or as still as possible, given the terrified jumping of her heart. For long moments the bear tested her with every sense, staring down with her weak eyes, listening, and most of all, smelling her. The bear smelled the morning's moose meat stew that Omakeus had eaten, the wild onion seasoning, and the dusty bit of maple sugar from old tallow stuck to the inside of her pocket. How she hoped the bear did not smell the bear-killing dogs, or the bear claw that swung on a silver hoop from old Tallow's earlobe. Perhaps the bear smelled the kind touch of Grandma and Mamma's bone and sprucewood comb, her baby brother's cuddling body, the skins and mats she had slept in, and little Pinch, who had whined and sobbed the night before. The bear smelled on Omakeus's skin the smell of its own cousin's bear grease used to ward off mosquitoes, fish from the night before last night, the berries she was eating. The bear smelled all. Omakeus couldn't help but smell her back. Bears eat anything, and this one had just eaten something ancient and foul. Ugh! Omakeus took shallow breaths. Perhaps it was to take her mind off the scent of dead things on the bear's breath that she accidentally closed the scissors, shearing off a tiny clip of bear fur, and then, to cover her horror at this mistake, started to talk. "No, miss," she said to the bear, calling her grandmother. "I didn't mean any harm. I was only playing with your children. Go wean, Onjinda. Please forgive me." The bear cuffed at Omakeus, but in a warning manner, not savagely, to hurt. Then the bear leaned back, nose working, as though she could scent the meaning of the human words. Encouraged, Omakeus continued. "I fed them some berries. I wanted to bring them home, to adopt them, and have them live with me at my house as my little brothers. But now that you're here, grandmother, I will leave quietly. These scissors in my hands are not for killing, just for sewing. They are nothing compared to your teeth and claws." And indeed, Omakeus's voice trembled slightly as the bear made a gurgling sound deep in her throat and bared her long, curved, yellowish teeth, so good at ripping and tearing. But having totaled up all of the smells and sifted them for information, the bear seemed to have decided that Omakeus was no threat. She sat back on her haunches like a huge dog, swinging her head around, She gave a short, quick slap at one of the cubs that sent it reeling away from Omakayas. It was though she were telling them they had done wrong to approach this human animal and should now stay away from her. Omakayas' heart squeezed painfully. Even though it was clear her life was to be spared, she felt the loss of her new brothers. "I wouldn't ever hurt them," she said again. The little cubs piled against their mother, clung to her. For a long moment the great bear sat calmly with them, deciding where to go. Then, in no hurry, they rose in one dark piece of fur. One bear boy broke away again, tried to get near Omakayas. The other looked longingly at her, but the big mother bear abruptly nosed them down the trail. Chapter 3. The Return. After she returned with the scissors, Omakayas quietly took up the deer bone from her mother's skin bag and began working on the moose hide without being asked. Her mother looked at her in some surprise, but said nothing. Angeline said that she had meant to do the work, but Omakayas merely shook her head. "Go for a swim," she told her sister. "See what the waves brought to the shore last night. Catch some crayfish, ashanhishin. Watch out for their claws. I don't mind helping." Angeline and Mama looked at Omakayas as though they couldn't have heard right. But when Omakayas nodded to signal that she meant what she said, and Mama nodded, Angeline started with delight. She had to do grown-up work now every day, and she rarely had free time to play. Angeline looked hopefully at her mother, who waved her out toward the lake shore. Off she ran, skipping and bounding in her thin summer moccasins, her soft old trade cloth dress fluttering. Baby Nero was sleeping in his chicken noggin. Little brother Pinch was killing his willow doll men over and over with a rock. Omakayas concentrated now on the work beneath her hands. She needed to think about what had just happened to her. Boring work was just what she wanted. Her mind could wander. She sighed, irritated by the smell and buzzing flies. At least there was some breeze that day to blow away the smell. While scraping the hide, she let her thoughts roam. The longer she thought about her encounter with the mother bear, the more Omakayas was convinced that something she did not understand had passed between the two of them. Not words. Perhaps they had communicated in smells, or maybe the language of feelings. Her terror, the bear's pity. Perhaps it was her own grandmother's advice that had saved her life. Nokomis had told her that the bear must be addressed with the greatest respect, as a treasured relative, that the bear had human qualities, and nobody quite understood the bear. But that bears understood humans quite well. When a bear was killed and its skin was off, Omakayas knew it looked fearfully like a person. She'd also heard that bears laugh and cry, just as humans do. Grandma had once seen a bear rocking its young in her arms, just as a human mother rocked its young. Nobody on the island ever tossed the bones of a bear aside. Every bear bone was gathered respectfully and buried all together. At a bear feast, the bear's skull was ribboned and set out on good red cloth, spoken to, honored. Yes, there was something about what had happened that made Omakayas very quiet. As she scraped at the hide, nicking bits of meat and gristle from the surface, she began to get all empty and peculiar and faint inside. A thought was coming. A voice approached. This happened to her sometimes. A dizzy feeling would pass over her. If she attended to it closely, once it was gone, she would know something a little extra, as though she had overheard two spirits talking. She kept scraping, gritting her teeth, and held on to her thoughts, for once again She could feel the presence of the powerful mother bear at her shoulder. Although there were no words, and although there was no odor of her presence, no bear sounds, no tracks, Omakay's heart lightened. Turning from her work, she knew the bear had visited her. She knew the bear had followed her home. She knew that when she needed the bear, she would be able to call upon the bear. The bear had understood something she had said, and she had understood something the bear had thought. And although she couldn't tell exactly what, Omakayas turned back to her task, with her head clear and her hands cheerful. She worked so hard all through that afternoon that her grandma, watching her keenly, made a great fuss over the work Omakayas had done with the hide. She said Omakayas had done as well as a full-grown woman. Her mother promised her a very special pair of winter moccasins, and Angeline even braided her hair with one of her own red ribbons.